Hello and welcome to the Broadway Q&A presented by Playbill and the Growing Studio. I'm Danny George. Every Monday and Wednesday, we chat with Broadway directors, composers, music directors, lyricists, choreographers, and more. Every Friday, we joined with faculty from America's leading musical theater and acting colleges. Every Thursday, we are throwing the great Not So White Way. Please join us as we chat with people of color about their journey in the industry. Today's guest is the Bob Fosse of our time. In addition to being a choreographer, he is widely known now as an acclaimed director. Andy Blankenbuehler's work is moving, smart, and changing the choreography of today's Broadway. I am so excited to sit down with Andy today and ask him some of your questions. Andy, are you there?
I am here. I'm here. It's going pretty good in this strange and crazy time.
I know, it's crazy, man.
Yeah.
If any of our viewers want to ask Andy a question, comment on Facebook or on YouTube. We'll also be bringing a couple of you onto the broadcast today to ask Andy a question yourself. So if that's all right, let's just get started.
Yeah, let's dive in. I'm excited.
So the first thing I want to talk about is Black Lives Matter. It is the most important movement of today. I don't want to distract from that movement. I want to make sure that we're addressing it, talking it, because it is our job to be allies to this movement. So I want to ask you what you are doing in your personal life to advocate for BLM.
Yeah, thanks for starting out with this topic. And I'm actually really glad that the timing of my interview here today coincides with me having had some time to really let the events of the past weeks and then backwards years sink in. I am like so many people where through my actions, through my family, and through my work, I have tried to have a big heart and an open-eyed and an open-armed approach to all cultures. But like so many people I have now realized how many of my little actions have contributed in ways that I never knew. And so long story short, the past few weeks of seeing this crazy, horrible stuff happening in the world, but rightfully with strong voices now, more than ever, I'm glad to be able to understand it a little bit more. It's definitely a learning process for me. The dialogues within the Hamilton company, for example, have been really educational. And ultimately, there are going to be big courses of action that I'm really anxious to dive into. Again, the Hamilton group is really finding great avenues to dive our weight into. But in the meantime, I'm also realizing there's little building blocks that I can help with every day. And one of the things that I've realized of late is that so many of my little actions have affected things in ways that I didn't know, even if that means walking into a room more present, more aware of conversation, as opposed to the tunnel vision sort of stoic creator that I usually am. That alienates people, and that doesn't allow people to bring their greatest selves into the room and feel empowered. So I do know that it's going to change. And in the past couple of weeks, I've started to have really wonderful conversations with my close colleagues in the business who are helping me, even though I'm in the dance studio with them all the time, are helping me to see things in ways that I never imagined. I'm sure today we're going to talk about authenticity in our work a lot. But that has been a new big conversation to me, because I always believed it's so important to bring as much authenticity as I can. But ultimately, there's so much I can never know. And so now I must have different kinds of dialogues with people and give different kinds of ownership. And that's going to greatly affect the kinds of stories that I feel I have the right to tell.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. I want to pen to this next question. This is from Josh from Brooklyn. What is your favorite process of directing?
Brooklyn in the house. Directing is so strange. It's in that as a choreographer, product usually comes to me when it's like 60 or 90% hatched. It's done already almost. And so then I can actually build with the clay. With directing, so much of the process is in the abstract. It's, oh, should there be a character here? Is it a man or is it a woman? Would they speak up loud? Like, you're talking about abstract ideas. And in meetings with writers and composers, which are thrilling, those abstract conversations can last for years. Like, I've been working on projects where the pre-production period, long before the first day of rehearsal, is 5-10 years. And that's a long time to talk about the abstract. So finally, when there is a first draft to read, like, it's so great. Then finally, when a song has a demo, it's so great. And then ultimately, I get frustrated by that abstract side of the process a little bit. And luckily, like all of us, we juggle several jobs at the same time. So if I'm in a writing process with a team, I'd like to be choreographing something else. So that at the end of the day, I've spent those calories and I'm exhausted in terms of working my body, trying to sculpt things. And then it opens my mind in a different way to go back to the writers. So I don't think I answered your question, but I think what I said was sometimes the hardest process for me is the early on abstract part of the process.
How do you start your process as a choreographer?
As a choreographer, I'm like a whore on Pinterest and like scrapbooking and stuff. I really love research, and I really love the details of life. That can be the way somebody rolls their shirt up in 1940s and then tucks a cigarette into it, or the way somebody holds a cigarette, like this is bandstand research, or the kind of shoes somebody wears. So I acquired that stimulation, and in my office, my dance studio, the entire wall is a corkboard, and I have hundreds of photos. Literally, it's like my brain exploded onto a wall. And what I'll slowly do is I realize I gravitate to certain details. Like I might gravitate to one guy, bandstand research again, who's like always got his shoulder up, and it's because he's stressed out. And so then I'll circle that picture, or I'll duplicate it 10 times. And then when I'm working on the number where the stress exists, I'd like duplicate his physicality. And in that same way, I'm very methody. And so I start to dress like the characters.
Right.
And so like my wife hates it because I'll have completely different wardrobes all the time. But it really helps me. Like it's back to an acting thing too. Sometimes characters start from the ground up. I have to wear the correct shoes in order to choreograph. Like if it's a gym shoe show, it has to be a gym shoe show. If it's like a factory, like it has to be done in boots. And so I like that jump off part of the process. And so what I usually do then when I actually start getting in the studio is I have my daily routine of the gym, my daily routine of PT and workout and warm up. And then I usually put on a song, whether it's from the show or just in the style of the feel of a character of the show. Then I improvise for a while, and on photo booth on the computer, I video everything. And then I'll actually work on the show for a few hours. Like, oh, he enters from stage right, start to work on the real steps. Right. And at the end of the day, because I'm getting older, my body can't dance for 8 hours. I will then go back to photo booth and cut up all the experimenting I did and start to categorize it. So I have like an iPhoto library for every show. And like I might put like arm affectations. I might put floor work. All these are different folders. So when I cut things up, I dump them in the different folders so that when I'm doing, like, say I'm doing a minute of stress, like I have all these different steps that feel like stress. And then I pull them back out to use as my color palette when I start to really choreograph.
I think that's the most unique process I've ever heard of. That's unbelievable.
I'm very sort of mathematic, and I have to have things organized.
Yeah.
And then to go hand in hand with that, and my collaborators all know this, I start choreographing in outline form on Word documents. So like I'll outline a number and write a paragraph. Like the intro might be a paragraph. He walks into the room and he's stressed out. He looks right, he looks to the left, and everybody's looking at him. And then I'll put in brackets like everyone's looking at him, and then I'll choreograph the everyone's looking at him.
So you stage manage your own choreography.
Kind of, yeah. I script like extended stage direction.
Wow.
Yeah, I love it.
It sounds like you really jump into this world as your process. What happens when the world isn't necessarily defined as of yet?
Well, that's that abstract thing I was telling you about. So what you have to slowly do, and I love it when, like, again, Bandstand's a good example of this. When you dive into a vision, and it might be going the wrong direction, but everybody's on the same team. Right. Everybody wants to try the same experiment. Right. And so you set for yourself rules, and those rules become parameters. Like, perfect example, the opening of In the Heights. Most people don't know this, but when I first started making it, I decided that people could only move in straight lines. There could be no curves, because the people in this community felt like they had no options at the time. And so people were always taking 90-degree turns and walking in straight lines. And then one time in the opening, there was a circle when Usnavi realizes it's all about community. Then it goes back to straight lines again. Wow. And so that became the parameter. everything has to be in a straight line. And you stick by those rules until one day you might find that they work brilliantly. And other times you might find that they're a failure, but you exhausted a possibility and now you can go in a different direction.
You know, you're essentially doing viewpoints. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Like I've talked a lot about that with Hamilton. Everything with Aaron Burr is linear. Everything with Hamilton is circular, and you just stick by those rules. If you're falling into the cycle of fate, you turn to your left in Hamilton. If you're resisting fate, you turn to your right in Hamilton. And so once you set that rule, you just keep building on it. And again, you might find it doesn't work, but
that is so smart. I am so fascinated by that. I have a viewer who wants to jump in, and ask if that's all right.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going, sir?
I'm good. I'm
Good.
Johnny. I just graduated from Montclair State University.
Oh, congratulations. Congratulations. That's great.
Thank you so much. How are you, first of all?
I'm good. You know, the past couple of months, like everybody, has been a process that we can talk more about in all these questions. But it's actually been a really good time of analysis and looking back and forward in equal parts. So that's the complicated answer to how I am today.
You're looking back, though, because that kind of goes with my question that I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, well, it seems like all of your choreography and all these different shows are very specific for that show. So I kind of wanted to know, like, how do you begin each choreographic journey? And then which part of the journey is like your favorite? Like, what do you really look forward to?
That's a great question. Thanks. You know what I like to do with young performers, everybody? I like to talk craft of what I do as a choreographer because I think that helps you see things from the backside. One thing I realized a bunch of years ago when I started choreographing, I was trying to choreograph dance steps all the time because I knew these flashy dance steps, these flashy turns that went to the floor. And my choreography was limited because I was trying to fit in vocabulary that I had known for a long time. So one of the first things I do is throw out that vocabulary and figure out how real life becomes dancing for these specific characters. So that means you must understand your characters. So obviously it's book, lyric, and then a lot of character text work, a lot of study of the characters to understand, like, why does somebody have their arms crossed all the time? Why does somebody smoke? Why does somebody always like jump fast? And those things become the through line. Like, for example, I like very active characters. So if you go back and look at my stuff now, you'll realize, one, we lean forward a lot because those are people who are pursuing jobs. But we're also, I ball change on and one a lot. So instead of just going 1, 2, I go and 1. And so I'm already more anxious by moving forward. And so some characters, for example, learn that anxiousness, that anxiety early in their journey. Some learn it after the conflict of the second act when they now figure out how to act. And so I can change their beat from on the beat in the first act to ahead of the beat in the second act because they have learned to become more active. And so, but to answer your question again, it goes back to the character. You have to figure out who the character is and try to let go of dance steps. That's why I love somebody like Hoggett. Like, do you know Hoggett's work? And like Harry Potter and Once, like that's real people moving.
Yeah.
And I find that really exciting.
Awesome. And what's your favorite part? Like
of the process? You know what, it's interesting. When I was a dancer, I wanted the show to open because I loved performing. And so I didn't like experimenting in the room. I never grew up in an environment where we did like contact improv. I never took an acting class. So like the idea of experimenting in rehearsal, I really disliked. When I started choreographing, I started to warm up to the process of the rehearsal process, because once the show's done, I'm actually done. So that is my process.
Yeah.
But now I have to say my absolute favorite part of the process is before day one, when I'm in the studio with like 4 or 5 or 6 dancers, and we take my ideas and get them ready to be handed over. That's really exciting because I also love people who bring very dynamic, different choices. So I love to have in the room like a crazy contemporary dancer from Juilliard, and over here like an Irish step dancer. Like, and how do you make the how do they make their bold choices, and then we find the middle ground. So I think that's my favorite part of the process, being in the dance studio.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for answering.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. This next question is from Megan Grochel from Toronto, Ontario. What qualities do you look for in dancers in an audition?
Yeah, it's a great question. First of all, I just have to interrupt for a second. I actually wear reading glasses, but I'm trying not to wear them, so I can hardly see you, Danny.
Do you want to put them on?
And then also, I'm just noticing my COVID haircut. My wife has been cutting my hair for the past 3 months, and she's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, she's done a great job. I tried to get my husband to cut mine, and he just won't do it.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a little hell. She cuts me a little bit. She nicks me with the scissors like my father used to when I was 10.
Do you want to put your glasses on?
What's that?
You want to put your glasses on?
No. What was the question? Oh, yeah, auditions.
What qualities do you look for in dancers in an audition?
So this relates back to Johnny's question just now. I believe it's about, we must tell stories about people, and we must tell honest stories about people. So at the end of the day, when an audience sits in that theater, we want the message to resonate through them. So we must be believable. We must tell the truth. We must tell stories that resonate in them, but we tell them in such dramatic ways that it makes them feel superhuman. Like Romeo and Juliet, right? He sees her, he's willing to die for her, and vice versa. Like, I want to be a married couple to be sitting in the theater and say, I remember when I saw my wife for the first time, and that's how I felt. Like, we want that. So we need realism and the ability to heighten realism. And so in auditions, I need real people. Like, if I'm doing a show about car mechanics, like, I need a car mechanic. I need somebody who can believably play that part. But like, for example, as our message gets heightened, every show heightens in a different way. So if this was Romeo and Juliet, it would probably breathe into a huge grand jeté. I need to know in the audition process that these dancers can do that beautiful grand jeté, and when they land, they're not going to hurt their feet, and they're not going to get injured 8 times a week. If like 5 Points, this new show I'm working on, if the heightening is about tap dancing at the speed of light, that's the technique I need to see. So in the audition process, I'm going to push a lot of technical buttons, but I'm going to push a lot of real people buttons. And I always say that in the room. I'll always talk about realness. I will always say, if you mess up steps, I couldn't care less. This is what I need to see. And then the last code on that is, as I think a lot of people know, I'm all about syncopation and musicality. And so my audition combinations tend to be very rounded with musicality and difficult, because we're going to do that all night long in the show. And then just one other caveat to that, you know, making a Broadway musical is really stressful and is really tense, and there's never enough time. And on a preview day, I'm always making changes at 4:45, rehearsal ends at 5, and they have to do the show that night. So I need to know that people are willing to dive into the brave process, that their brain works fast, and they're willing to exhaust their brain. Also, I need to know that they're just there with me. Like, eventually there must be communication. There must be conversation that says, you know what, I don't think my character would say that. Or the conversation that says, this is the most important message I've ever had, let's keep going. And so that one-on-one eye contact is a big deal in auditions.
You talked before about pre-pro, getting in the room before rehearsal, and that you have 5 or 6 dancers join you. How do you get on that list? Because I'm sure half of our viewers are going, all I want to do is work for Andy.
Yeah, it's a lot of people I work with. It's a lot of people that I came up with, like when I taught for New York City Dance Alliance, and like people I've known for many years. But like, for example, I have met several people in the past couple of years who are now with me a lot. One is Victoria. I met her at Pace, and I went to teach a master class for the seniors. She really impressed me, and she's now done like 3 shows for me.
Wow.
And, recently I taught a one-day master class with Mark Stewart, and in that class was this beautiful dancer, Jordan Epstein, and she glaringly made a huge, not a mistake in class, but she did something that I didn't want. And she did it with such bravery that then she inspired my attention to give her feedback. And I love the bravery of following your impulses, because that inspires feedback. And so now Jordan she's constantly Zooming with me. She and I are working in the studio together on Zoom. And so I meet people in all different ways, but they have to grab me. Like I met this wonderful girl at dance break, Betty, and she, at the dance break, SDC's dance break,
Yeah.
a couple months ago, she was just so good in the piece she did. And I emailed, I was like, I have to find out who this girl is and I need her email address. And I emailed her and she's in fold. So I think it's just about doing your thing and having your own voice.
Right.
And that voice needs to be bold. Because you know what? The show puts us in a lane.
Right.
You have to be bold first
Right.
and then get in the lane. You don't have to go like this in life. You have to know hip hop rhythms and you have to know ballet technique. You have to know everything. And then the things that call to you, do them really loud and people are going to notice.
Wow, that's a hell of an answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
This question is from Devin Monick from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You tend to work primarily on new works. Does your process differ when working on revivals like Joseph?
It's interesting. Revivals in a lot of ways are harder. I mean, original musicals are brutal, but the good thing about original musicals, one of many good things, is that there's always more that can happen. There's, as long as the team has an open mind, there's always further to dig. And every day, the needs of the audience change. When we go back to work, the COVID virus will have changed us and the Black Lives Matter movement will have changed us. So that means when we approach the work, we have to change. We have to approach it appropriately. Like last week, something struck me about this musical that I'm working on called 5 Points, which is about a Black immigrant in 1860 and an Irish immigrant in 1860. And I had a revelation about our second act because of what is happening right now. And it's our responsibility to then make that change. That's the problem with the revivals. Either the original creators aren't with us anymore, or sometimes there's not an open-mindedness to change. And then sometimes there's a great open-mindedness to change. But some things have changed in our theater over the past 100 years. Like our ability to suspend disbelief has changed. Many issues about women's rights and representation has changed. The representation of ethnicities has changed. But also, my kids can do 10 things, multitask at the same time on an iPad and print this and walk the dog. Like, our audience has changed. Our audience is faster. And so revivals are tough. So I did work on Joseph. I worked on Cat several times in several different versions. I did a couple different things that are difficult. And I have a revival coming down the pike a little bit. For the most part, I want to concentrate on new work because I like the ability to always make changes and to dig deeper. But here's the other thing about revivals. You know, people ask me about how I started. When I was in Fosse, I started teaching at Broadway Dance Center. And I had a class on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the best thing ever for a young person is to go to the classics. So on a certain Tuesday, I could choreograph Sing, Sing, Sing. The next day I could do Steam Heat. The next day I could do blah, 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 blah. And by spending time with those classics, you learn. You learn from the best orchestrators, the best writers, the best directors. You learn. And that is the thing about revival material. Some of the material is just so golden. Like, it's so good that you want to live in that place. And so it's really exciting. I mean, I made my Broadway debut with Guys and Dolls. The show was amazing.
Yeah. I have another viewer here who wants to come and ask a question, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Hey,
how are you? Good to see you.
I have a question for you from James Simpson, who is from Oxford, UK. And he wants to know, who is your biggest inspiration as a choreographer?
Oh, that is so tricky. Why don't you bring me an easier one from the UK next time? Biggest inspiration as a choreographer. I mean, I have to say that the work of Jerome Robbins has been huge in my life. I feel like there's a beauty in his work that he tells micro and macro stories at the same time. There is a musicality in his work and most importantly, a versatility. He becomes a chameleon and changes style so dramatically from show to show. So that was a really big deal to me. You know, I grew up on the movie musical. So I grew up on Gene Kelly. I wanted to be Gene Kelly. I wanted to be Gene Kelly more than Fred Astaire. And then I remember the day that my teacher came in and she showed us the music video to The Way You Make Me Feel. And so, like, how can I separate my idolizing of Gene Kelly from my idolizing of Michael Jackson. And I remember the first time I saw Smooth Criminal, I was in a lobby, and I it was on a TV in a lobby, and I stopped, the traffic's going past me, my jaw is on the floor. I couldn't believe Smooth Criminal. And in my career, I've made a lot of choices that say, if this was Smooth Criminal, what would it be? Like, you set your work against those scales. And then I would find out that Smooth Criminal was based on a Fred Astaire movie. It was based on The Girl Had Ballet from The Bandwagon.
Wow.
So my goal today is to not answer anyone's questions directly. So those were three answers.
I love that.
For all of our viewers who don't know Miriam Teak Lee, she is the lead in & Juliet right now on the West End. I got to see the show last year. It was brilliant. She is unbelievable. It's a matter of time before American audiences know her by name.
Oh, of a few minutes, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's already been too long. So we are.
Oh, I know. I want to get back. I'm ready.
I have to tell you, just while Miriam's still here, the UK cast of Hamilton was so good when they opened. And maybe it was so good. Yeah. And maybe it was because a lot of it they actually had to learn rather than be. Yeah. It's because if you think about it, they're performing in an accent to begin with.
Exactly.
And so the lyric was so crystal clear. The movement was like, everybody commented that the movement was just unbelievable. So it was a wonderful intro for me.
Andy, have you seen & Juliet yet?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh my God. You are going to be blown away, honestly.
Yeah. I've heard great things.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Miriam.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you, Andy.
You too.
This next question is from our Facebook. This is from Alan Oh, I'm sorry, Alan. I'm going to butcher your last name. Smason, maybe. You were beyond brilliant with the film production of Bandstand, incorporating your choreo into what the film and TV audience saw. Since In the Heights, you have had such a special relationship with Stephanie Clemons. Can you tell me about that and what she brings to your process?
Thank you so much for that question, and thanks for that compliment about Bandstand. So before we talk about Steph, it was very important to me, and I was very thrilled to be in the editing process of Bandstand. I believe in the power of a Broadway ensemble. That is my core mission. That's why I started choreographing when I did, because I thought dance could be more integral and the ensemble could be more integral. And so I use the ensemble in a way that always pushes through the principle, always pushes through the narrative. And so the narrative of the principal storyline is buffered up by the way we hold them in the show. That happens in Hamilton and Bandstand. And I'm thrilled that my collaborators, people like Tommy, have allowed me to use the ensemble so much. And so when I worked on the Bandstand film, it was a very high priority for me to not cut out the framing device of the action, because the framing of device, the ensemble's participation in movement, pushed the narrative to such complex and beautiful places. And so I'm glad that I was able to sort of jigger that into the equation at Bandstand. You know, going to Steph and I have a very long relationship. I remember very clearly the first time she auditioned for me for In the Heights in her camo pants, and she killed it. And then she got into the show and our roles changed. She was a swing, she was a dance captain, she assisted me, she was my associate. We shifted, and recently we co-choreographed a show. So our relationship has continued to grow. And she's a wonder in many, many ways. I mean, let's just put the easy stuff aside. Like, she's an amazing dance captain brain. So as an assistant associate, she knows where everybody's going, what everybody's doing. Next thing, she's an amazing diplomat. And I think part of what is necessary for the good cop, bad cop of it all is I learned that I need space to not disturb my brain, because I get distracted easily. And so she runs great defense for me. She fields questions, she reinterprets. So there'll be many a time in the making of a new show where I don't even explain something. I just start going, and she's like, I think what he means is ... And so she's a great diplomat between the two parties. And she's a great stylist. Like, she's able to embody things. Like, I'll feel something, but my interpretation is often linear, and she'll just round the edges and make things more fluid. And so she finishes my thoughts in a really exciting way. Wow. And then finally about Stephanie, she's pretty outspoken. Like, she's a strong woman, and she has really great things to say, and really well thought out ideas, really well thought out reasoning. And she tests me. And that is important. She sat me down once about 10 years ago when our relationship got a little rocky, and she said, you do this, this, and this. We need this, this, and this. I will do this, this, and this. And I needed that clarity in my life creatively.
Right.
And she implemented that, and she's implementing that today, even in difficult circumstances, in what we're going through politically right now with the Black Lives Matter movement. And she works a lot of interesting reasoning angles and helps people greatly.
It's fantastic. This question is from YouTube. It's from a user named Songbird. What was what was your favorite song to choreograph?
In life? So first of all, if you wonder why I'm talking so fast, third cup. You know, it's interesting. I have choreographed about 20 different things to Sing, Sing, Sing. And I'm not sure why that is. Like, I'm not sure if like I'm reincarnated from a person who was in the Savoy when they heard Sing, Sing, Sing the first time, or I don't know. But I love Sing, Sing, Sing. And I think that it's because it has such deep bass tension in it and driving drums. And even though I take pride in being a chameleon in my life, my choreography career, ultimately, maybe what I do best and what I like to do the best is represent the tension of a real emotional conundrum. So not the resolution of, that's going to come, the conflict that makes you reach a boiling point. And that often has to deal with second position. That often has to deal with a contraction. And Sing, Sing, Sing has that embedded in it. And so I think that was a big learning tool to me, Sing, Sing, Sing. In my work, I heard Rumor It Happens the first time, and I decided, it was in a studio, I think it was like downtown at like Ripley Greer or something. I heard it in a reading, and I said to myself, that has to be the best thing I ever choreograph, because that's the best song I've ever heard. And from then on out, then I got writer's block and I couldn't choreograph at all. And it took me like 4 times to finally get it to where it is now. But I love that song. I love that song because I think it's a cool song. I love the banjo that Alex put in the song. And I love that it is a production number that pushes plot forward in such a complex way. It's a rare thing when a production number, usually production numbers pause the action and then fly. This production number flies because it's processing information. And I think I'm really proud of that, but the song inspired me to do that.
Thank you. I have another viewer who wants to come in and ask a question, if that's okay.
Bring it. I might need glasses for this one.
Oh, hey. Couldn't you just listen to him talk
All day
and all night?
Yep.
It's like, and then what happens when it flies?
Yeah.
I just love you so much.
Thanks, Beth.
And I miss you. I have a question for you. And this is from Olivia Spreen, who lives in the Bay Area in California. And she
Where I got engaged.
Well, there you go. See, Olivia? She's asking, what is the hardest part of choreographing and directing? And by the way, she is the biggest fan of Bandstand.
Ooh, holla, holla, holla.
So what was the hardest part of choreographing?
Well, I'm gonna reinterpret that question and say that the question is choreographing and directing, not choreographing and directing. I had no idea that exponentially the directing side of it was going to take so much more time. And so the most difficult thing is, by the time it gets done enough for the choreographer to take over, I usually run out of time. And so by the time I start to choreograph, I'm out of shape because I haven't danced in months. Like, it's hard to get those juices going again. And the other thing is, as a choreographer, like Tommy Kail and I have a great relationship. And so one of the best parts of our relationship is he lets me be sort of the dark presence in the room who's cooking up these science experiments. And he becomes the good cop and he paves the way. As director and choreographer, you have to be both at the same time. You have to set up the room in a way that everybody knows what's going on. We're on the same team. We're inspired. And then the dark vision takes over. And so it's wearing those two hats is a little complicated. But the best thing about it maybe, and I didn't say this before, is that I can, through my direction, make sure that the choreographic opportunities have the best chance to work. Because what often happens is we're given a moment that doesn't really work, and I kill myself as the choreographer to make it as good as possible. And then in previews, we cut the number. When I'm directing and choreographing, I cut the number before it gets there. Like I say, you know, at this moment, I don't believe the audience is going to wait for. We have to move more quickly. But the old me would have said, well, let me see how well I can choreograph that, because maybe it will work. Now the new me who directs first says, let's make sure that the book and the song is in the right place. And so that actually saves me time. And that was the golden process of Hamilton. When Hamilton was so inspired by the writing that when it came to me as choreographer, everything worked. And so we only cut, I think, one song when we started rehearsal. And in the Heights, I think there are 27 cut songs.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Beth.
That is an amazing answer, and I think we'll do it.
Luckiest man alive. When Beth said yes to Bandstand, luckiest man alive.
Oh, come on. It's one of the highlights of my life. And I personally have killed 27 songs in Broadway shows on my own. But I will certainly do the best I can to make sure that's like, nah, cut it. It's like, oh, sorry. But that's part of the discovery. So it is always a privilege and a joy to be in the room where it happens.
Thanks, Deb.
You're welcome.
Great seeing you.
So much.
Bye, Danny.
Oh, wait, Paul, are you there?
Yeah.
Look at this drawing I started.
Oh.
Our Bandstand family.
Oh my gosh. Wait, you're doing that?
Yeah, I draw as therapy.
Not do.
Yeah, it's just not fair.
That's amazing.
I just saw it right next to my name.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh. All right. I don't know how to leave. I'm just going to stand here.
Get the hell out of here.
Oh, seriously, it's like, thank you for the playing.
Okay, next question. This question is from Curtis Murphy from Framingham, Massachusetts. What shows are you presently working on, and how has your process changed while in quarantine?
Yeah, that's great questions. So interestingly, like many people, and I'm glad we're talking about this, I hit the time of crisis like many people did, really, really scared of the situation, the COVID situation, scared for myself, scared for my family, my 2 kids. And so we trenched up. I mean, we did not leave. I didn't see people for 8 weeks. I never saw another person. And I'm very lucky that I work at home. My office is in my home. And so I had a dance studio. And I started the process. I was unable to do something new. Like it's like when you're pacing a hallway, you're like, what am I going to do? I have to pace for the next 10. I was pacing in life. So what I started to do was clean out my hard drive, really. And since I video everything, I have thousands of videos of shows and thousands of videos of more importantly, cut steps. Like things, when I go into the studio with dancers, we'll do like 10 versions and one makes it in the show. So that means I have 9 other great things that never saw the light of day. Right. And spending time with those things has been tremendously therapeutic. It's been tremendously inspiring to see the dancers who I've spent time with. And it's also been just a wonderful reminder that we're all on this creative journey that's hard to find, and it's hard to find answers, but you have to spend those calories to find your way. So I did that a lot. Then I started teaching some of my assistants and some dancers on a Zoom class, which was really great. Using those classes as an opportunity to pull those videos out and work on them on my feet again to remember the steps. So that was really exciting. And then I hit a wall and it said, you know what, we're going to get back to real life. We're going to find our way again. So let me start working again on the real shows that I believe are going to be down the pipe for us. So the second part of that question, I'm doing a really beautiful new musical called Only Gold that I wrote with a co-writer, Ted Mallower, and we wrote it with British singer-songwriter Kate Nash.
Ted is Ted used to take class at Growing Studio. Yeah, he's from Juilliard.
Yeah, Juilliard.
Brilliant! Oh my god.
Yeah, he's great. And Kate Nash from England is the composer. Right. And it's been like a therapy project for like 8 years for me. And we've done 2 workshops. Jeffrey Sellers producing it. And it's a beautiful show. It takes place in Paris in the 20s, but it's totally anachronistic. And it's about realizing that the tiny things that are most important in life, that we need to let go of the notion of perfectionism. We need to let go of more. Life is more, and like throw everything away to cherish that one thing that really satisfies us.
Right.
So I've been working on that, script rewrites with Ted and I've gotten on my feet to start working. Kate just wrote a new song this week. So that's been great. I've finished a round of script rewrites with Harrison, who's writing the book to 5 Points. So we're hoping to do 5 Points in early 2022, hopefully starting at the Paper Mill Playhouse. But that show's really, really exciting. And the second crisis we're now in has been interesting too, because working on 5 Points, where I have a real presence of Black culture, it's really started to make me ask all new questions. One of those questions is, what's the best way to tell the story? Is this a story I should be telling? Like it's a really great cathartic beginning of dialogue. I'm not figuring anything out today. It's just making me become a new person in the way I think.
Right.
And then I'm doing a beautiful new show called The Secret of Santa Victoria with John Weidman, who's a wonderful Broadway writer. And it's a book that we licensed and we're turning it into a play with dance. And it's set in a vineyard town in World War II in Italy. And it's a battle of wills between the invading captain and the Italian mayor. And it's a beautiful, beautiful story. So we're done with the first act of that.
Oh my God. You're doing so many things. It's unbelievable.
It's good. But you know what? Like, I think like most people on the other side of this Zoom is that you go down a path in this isolation and then it runs out, your steam runs out. And I'm a real believer in sometimes you can't let go. You have to keep driving. Yeah. And then sometimes it's like, I know where I am with this. Let me push pause and let me go this way now. And I think it's been good to continue to explore new avenues, because on each different week in this isolation, we've all been feeling different ways. And I think you have to pay attention to what you're feeling.
Thank you. This next question is from Elena Pasculo from Westchester. For all of us strong movers, non-dancers, what can we be focusing on through this time to up our skill set?
Yeah, you know what? I learned a lot. I used to not like to do musical staging because I thought I was going to have to dummy down dance steps and teach easy dance steps to non-dancers. Right. Or force them to do as challenging stuff as possible. That's not the answer to good theater. The answer to good theater is have a good idea and then physicalize that good idea. Like there's a moment in Once, I talked about Hoggett before, where people at the desks, their hands just start to float. Amazing. You know, the slow motion bullet in Hamilton, that's not a dance step. Yes, she looks amazing at the physicality, but it's an idea. And so that's the key to the mover, is becoming an intelligent enough human and actor to process something physically. And that just means you have to be physical enough to be able to experiment. That means you should take some tap classes so you understand rhythm, or hip hop so you understand rhythm, core conditioning so you can experiment. Like if I say to an actor, this is a really hard decision in your life, act like your body's pushing against a huge wall of water. Like you have to be physically fit enough to experiment with that idea. I'm never going to say to the mover, now go into passe and do a suit new turn. Like those words are not coming out of my mouth. But I learned that late. So I would say to the movers out there, take a lot of classes so that you just have tastes of things. Right. So that if you're playing the part of like a disgruntled poster worker, now you can figure out how that works in your shoulders, or you can experiment in different ways.
Right. Now, this next question is from Ashley Moniz from Long Beach. What show have you never directed or choreographed that you'd like to?
West Side Story.
Easy.
No, I love West Side Story. I always wanted to take a stab at West Side Story. Maybe one day in my life, I will take a stab at West Side Story. As I said before, I made my Broadway debut with Guys and Dolls. And so I thought that I would want to try to choreograph that if it happened in the future. I spent some time with it recently, And I realized something interesting. I love the dancing in Guys and Dolls. Did I say West Side? I love the dancing in Guys and Dolls. But I decided as a director that it wasn't my speed, because I find now I'm only interested in shows where the plot can really be pushed forward by the ensemble, pushing the principal. And I didn't feel like Guys and Dolls was that show, for example. So that was a show that I wanted to do. I've always loved to take a stab at Andrew Lippa's Wild Party.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. That'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, we'll see. There's a lot of shows.
This next question is from Ayla Mitnick from Brooklyn. What is the best way for a performer to stay on your radar?
That's a tricky question because the times now are pushing reset in our rules. But I do say this, I will say this. I give you my pledge. I try my hardest to go to open calls. Like I try my hardest to attend auditions.
Yeah.
Because I have hired many a person from the open call. And even if I don't hire them, they strike me, and then I see them 2 years later and I'm like, you. And like, I think those relationships are important. So I will at least give my pledge.
I'm rooting for Joseph for you forever going to an open call. And I remember pooping my pants because you were sitting at an open call.
Yeah. I attend non-equity calls for shows because I believe in it. I believe in the system that even if most people get cut from an audition. Right. Auditions are brutal. Right. If I can help make an audition a masterclass, I've done an extra good job that day. Right. And so, I believe that sometimes even in the way I can teach a dance combination, somebody might learn a little something about either me or the product or the audition experience. And I think that helps people. But I don't know how to stay on my radar right now because I'm in a room in isolation. But one day, the reset button will get pushed a little bit.
This next question is from YouTube, from a viewer named DMAC. You seem very collaborative. Could you talk a little more about your process when collaborating with different team members?
Yeah, collaboration is wonderful and difficult because there is that horrible moment of like saying, what do you think about this idea? Like putting yourself out there is hard. Like I've been in a lot of situations where I'll take an idea away and work on it for a week with dancers, and then I come back to the director and show it, and it's the worst feeling I've ever had in my life. Like, and so that relationship is difficult. Tommy is an example again of how wonderful he is with open arms to say, try your thing. And he also watches the process evolve. Part of the problem is when people just pop in to see it for a second, like he sees me teach it, so he understands what I'm thinking because he's watching me do it. And then he sees it rougher. And then he sees me go from 8 people doing it to 4 people doing it. And he understands it better. And I think that need for understanding is important so that then he can say something really smart that changes the picture. Like, what if not everybody's doing it in unison? Or what if more people are doing it in unison? And all of a sudden we have found our way together. I think the biggest collaboration is with the music team. I spend a lot of time with my dance arrangers. And I have an amazing relationship with Alex Lacamoire. I mean, he is best of the best. And he's able to be fluid. Like I joke all the time. I'm like, what would this sound like if it was going down the steps? And he takes that song, whatever it is, and makes it go down steps. Or what would it sound like if all of a sudden everybody went in slow motion except for one person's thought process? Like I'll give him imagery and he can make it happen. But the problem is it's all demanding. So there's all this weird, easy give and take that you have to let people have their timing. Like there was a Hal Prince quote that came out in an SDC journal like 10 years ago that said Hal Prince's biggest lesson he learned was turning over the information when the other person was ready to receive it. And I think that's a key to collaboration. Like so many times I'll think, oh, he's the only person singing the tenor line, but he has to make a quick change. So he can't sing the last third of the song. And I'll call the music director. The music director hasn't even started on the score yet. Like he's not ready to receive that. Even though I had to choreograph it 2 months in advance, he's not ready to receive it or she's not ready to receive it. And so I think understanding where your collaborator is at the time is a really important thing.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
You really can listen to you talk all day.
Oh, thanks.
This next question is from Illabonquisha Johnson from Bucks County, Pennsylvania. You've directed and choreographed so many incredible shows. Which one do you find to be the most difficult and why?
I wonder if that's difficult to make or difficult to see stay open.
There's question.
There are, after that, I'm going to answer that as a loaded question. There are times, we can't make it perfect. We don't get it right all the time. And so there are times that a show is open, and as the repetition of running the show every day makes everybody's machine work more efficiently, the problems come out.
Right.
Like the dull moments, the slow moments, the bad jokes, the horrible choreographic phrases. So that actually is difficult. It's difficult to see a show evolve when it's an imperfect product. The other thing that's heartbreaking to see is when my work is already flawed a little bit, when the original performer, like say I gave them something that catered to their own nuance, their own charisma,
Right.
It's stunning every night. The next person who replaces them, their needs and their bag of tools is slightly different. And so it's an interesting process of watching a show evolve. Do you go back into rehearsal? I mean, in London they do. Do you go
Right.
back into rehearsal to cater it to the new person?
Right.
But if the show's frozen, is it supposed to be frozen? It's a difficult challenge. But what was the question? Because I just had 6 questions.
It's from Illabonquisha Johnson from Bucks County, Pennsylvania. You've directed and choreographed so many incredible shows. Which one's the most difficult and why?
Which one is the most difficult?
Yeah.
I think in many ways, Cats was the most difficult to choreograph. I wasn't directing that show, but the choreography was so all-inclusive of the show that it is such a non-linear show. I didn't have the ability to fall onto lyric the way I like to. I'm really on the lyric. Like I live and die by the lyric. And Cats doesn't have a lot of lyric. So that was really tough. Hamilton, people think Hamilton, oh my God, it's so big. There's so many lyrics. It must have been so difficult. That was not the most difficult show to choreograph. Like for me, Heights was a lot more difficult to choreograph.
Right.
But it's interesting. It goes back to the idea, if the team together with writing has already weeded out their issues, the choreographing of it and the directing of it is easier as it goes.
And is there anybody who has passed on or from the past who you'd like to work with and never got the chance to?
Oh, that's such a good question. I never met Bob Fosse or Jerome Robbins.
Right.
And I remember so well, I had a good friend right when I moved to the city, and he was in Jerome Robbins' Broadway. And Robbins, I guess we know, could be really difficult. And the show itself was brutal on the cast. Like a lot of people were beaten down. A lot of people were inspired up, but a lot of people were pushed down. And when I moved to the city, I had a very big heart, and I was very like a puppy dog trying everything. And they said to me, if you came here 6 months earlier, you would have been in the show and he may have broken you. So I'm glad you missed the show. That was such a weird thing. But I saw Jerome Robbins Broadway the day I moved to New York City, and it changed my life. It changed my life. So I would have loved to have worked with Robbins, with Bob Fosse. I would have loved to have been on a set with Michael Jackson.
Yes.
It's interesting. There are so many people, so many good people. I've met Gregory Hines a few times, but oh my God, could I spend a week with Gregory Hines? I would be the happiest man alive.
Right.
I think it's good to have idols. And what's interesting is I grew up in a world where I knew no other male dancers in Cincinnati in the 80s.
Wow.
No male mentorship. There was no Dancing with the Stars. There was no So You Think You Can Dance. And when I became a 17, 18 years old, I started to meet people a little bit, but I knew no one. That's my phone ringing. And so interesting, I kind of not perfected, but I got good at making mentors of people who I would never meet.
Right.
Burshnikov, I idolize that guy. Gregory Hines, I idolize that guy. And so you live in their world and you hold on to things and they're going to come back to you. And I think I did that with Fred Astaire. I did that with so many people. You hold on to the impact that they made you feel. They become your teacher. They become your mentor. And so I think even if those people are far away from you, they can still impact you.
And you've achieved so much in your career already, and you're so young. is there anything that you have not achieved yet that you are still working on going towards?
You know, it's interesting. My career actually is taking a shift, and we haven't talked about that yet. But I always wanted, even when I was a very little kid, I would have an idea for a creative idea, and I wanted to do all parts of it. I wanted to build all parts of it. I talk a lot about, I had a school project once where we had to sculpt something with a circus, and I made this 3-ring circus that had safari animals and jugglers, and the vision was so big I couldn't tackle 1/10 of it, so my project wasn't very good because I was so far reaching with my ideas. I hadn't yet learned to focus like this. But I think then for years to follow, I wanted to do a story by credit and then direct and choreograph. I wanted to really physicalize the stories that were resonating with me. So the past few years I've been writing a lot, and so I think that's probably the next phase of my career, that I will either write the script or do a story by credit and then give it to a better writer. That's what me and Ted are doing. So I wrote Only Gold first.
Right.
Brought it to Ted and I thought, you got to help me. And so then we rewrote it together, and he is helping me be a better writer and make a better show out of it.
You direct, you choreograph, you're a dad, you're a writer, you're a painter. I mean, it's unbelievable.
But you know what? You have to be careful not to get too close, because if you get too close, you can't see the forest through the trees. You can only see the trees.
Right.
And that's truly why collaboration is important. Like, I have a great relationship with David Corns. So even if I'm writing, directing, choreographing, he's the set designer and he stands right next to me and he's like, this moment is way too busy. Or like, we're not following that character. I know you think we're following that character, but we're not following that character.
Right.
We need those collaborators who can also cross-pollinate. They can speak to you because they know you well enough as a person, and they can speak to you. I tell you a funny story. We were in a very stressful rehearsal at Bandstand one day. Like, things were going not good on this one day.
Right.
And we had to hold in a tech rehearsal for a couple moments. And I sat down on the end of the aisle, and David sat down next to me, David Corns, and he cracked a joke. And we talked for like 3 minutes about something that had nothing to do with Bandstand. If it wasn't for that good friendship right then, I could have never pushed a reset button and remembered that I was a person. I wasn't just a director who was stuck. Right. So you need those people with you to help you see perspective.
We have time for one more question from a viewer. I'm going to bring her on in, if that's all right.
Yeah, bring it. Yeah.
Hi,
hey,
Andy.
how are you? How's it going?
I was just interested to know, as a white creative, when you're approaching art that derives from other cultures and races, how do you go about keeping the authenticity in it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a very appropriate and valid question. So thank you for that. You know, that answer is shifting under my feet as we go, because I do take pride in my attention to authenticity and detail, but I also take pride in honesty. Like, I want to be a good person and a truthful person, but I want to forward that in my work. And so in the past, a lot of it had to do with the beginnings of the research process. Like, when I started working on it in the Heights, and I didn't know too much about that world. Like, I read books, I watched documentaries, I moved to LA and I took 6 hip-hop classes a day and met people who I could spend time with over coffee. So that idea of understanding as much as I could understand was important. To then surround myself with people who could, again, test me and push me. So like within the Heights, for example, I started choreographing how Andy would choreograph. And then this shoulder would change because Ricky Tripp had this amazing sensibility to him. And so I think that's important. Here's the juicy part of the question. That is changing. What I mean by that is that some stories are definitely better told by somebody else. Like, I know that I am capable of enriching a situation, but for very long in our career, we are just trying to get a job. We're trying to pay our rent. We're trying to make a name for ourselves. So I had found myself in positions where I couldn't bring what the show really needed, but I acted like I could and I did my best job. Like, for example, I did a show called The People in the Picture at the Roundabout, and it needed somebody who understood Jewish culture much more than I could. And I think I did an okay job, but I didn't do what needed to be done. So now moving forward, I know that more now. And I am looking forward to the opportunity, actually, whether it's mentorship or whatever it is, to then say, you know what, I can't really get this, but I get the frame, I get the show, I get this, but how can we have a new team that does it together? Or there's going to be shows where I'm like, I should not do that show because somebody has the right to say it better than me. And I think that this crisis is teaching me that in really interesting ways that I never knew. And to say for everybody, black, white, everybody, it's difficult because sometimes we need a gig. Like we find ourselves doing things in positions because that's just been the way it was. And now, in a great way, people are saying it doesn't need to be that way or stop being that way. And so I think all parties can talk together and listen together and react together to say there was a different way to empower. There's a different way to grant ownership of something that somebody should have. And so I think that's definitely changing. And so thank you for that really good and delicate question.
Thank you so much for answering.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Andy, I want to thank you so much for your time. I really am hanging off of every word, as I'm sure all the viewers are. I so appreciate you being here.
Oh my God, it's great. And I'm so, again, the timing is great. I hope that my little insights from my crazy messed up brain helps create there, helps people struggling with isolation and helps people struggling through this horrible racial crisis. So hopefully the timing has been good for everybody.
Thank you. We can't wait to see what you do next.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Take care. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now, on Wednesday, we are joined by director Jack O'Brien and Monday by director Bart Sher. This Tuesday, if you're following us, the Growing Studio on Instagram, will be interviewing an agent, like we do every Tuesday as part of our Take 10 series. On Thursday, on Playbill, we have the Great Not So White Way, as we chat with people of color about their journey in the industry. This week is Nick Walker and Danielle Fulton. On Friday, we're joined by two musical theater colleges. I hope you join us. Follow us on Instagram. Thank you so much.